Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to this week in Bitcoin. Today is November the 9th. 2018. Strong hand, unconfiscatable, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Well, we're supposed to have three guests. We don't know where Money Triggs is right now. He might just pop in here at any second. But I'm pumped nonetheless because I got Ansel Lindner in here and I've got Ken Bozak in this house today. And we are ready to talk about all sorts of fun topics related to what has happened this week in Bitcoin. Well, here at the end of the week, there is just all this Bcash forking talk. And I think it actually, you can ignore it, but a lot of people aren't ignoring it now because it's become pretty ridiculous from the fake Satoshi side. And hey, I know Bitcoin is not Bcash, but a lot of people still get confused and it could have an effect on Bitcoin. Who knows? So let's hear what Ansel Lindner has to say about this Bcash fork drama. How does he think it's going to end? Will it play any role in Bitcoin's fiat price? Remember, value your wealth in Bitcoin. So, one Bitcoin still equals one Bitcoin no matter what. Ansel, take it away, baby.
Well, we were talking right before the show about how you think it could have a negative impact on Bitcoin, but I think it's good that it's happening right now. We're in a down market. All the metrics are down. All the people that are watching Bitcoin or new people coming in, we're at a lull. So it's going to affect the smallest amount of people in that respect. I say let it burn. I kind of want to see Craig Wright's scorched earth policy. I want to see him initiate that and make the price or make it untradeable for a year. I don't think it will last that long. People will lose interest in just a couple months if it has a zero price on the exchanges. So I say let it burn, and these guys deserve it. What are they fighting over? 80 kilobytes of transactions in every block. It's still not used. It's basically a worthless network. So who cares? Let it burn.
Now you allude to him, making it impossible to use for a year. And this dude actually said this. He was threatening King of the Trolls. It is so unprofessional what this guy is tweeting out. I have linked to he's fake Satoshi. I don't even say his name. The other guys can say his name, but I'm not going to say his name. I linked to his Twitter below, though. And, that he's still some people think he's Satoshi still, which is unbelievable. He's a cult-like figure, I guess. I don't know how you can have followers when you make yourself out to be this unstable over social media. His Twitter is it's something to read the last 48 hours. And Poloniex has futures, and the price of Bcash has gone down since this has started, and the price of his SV has gone down. SV's futures are about 10, 12, 15% of ABC's future. So I'll stick with you on this. Do you think ABC is going to win? We were talking about this off air, so I know what will ABC win?
Well, yeah, if anybody's going to win, it's going to be ABC, I think.
All right. So that's that. Okay. And Ken, how about you? What's your take on all this?
I just love that he's burning the last bridge he has left with Roger, man. I'm loving that. That's the best takeaway from it right now is, like you said, I honestly don't think it's going to make Bitcoin look bad. I think it's making them look bad. Roger, Gian, Craig, all these guys, they look like idiots. They're making themselves look bad. The inner fighting and everything, it's just, I don't think it makes Bitcoin look bad. Bitcoin keeps on trucking no matter, even if the quote unquote founder, fake Satoshi is acting a fool. It doesn't affect Bitcoin. Bitcoin keeps on ticking. Oh, there we go. There's Chewbacca.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What a shock, everyone. JW has taken the place of Money Triggs. How has this happened? Money Triggs is in Europe and JW is at an undisclosed location somewhere in the world. So this is awesome. Shabaka in the house. We got Harry Shabaka, my hair, his pink hair there, and we got Ansel too. So let's
JW, we are talking about one of your favorite subjects, Bcash. I know, no, it's not at all. You think all altcoins are scams. What do you think about this latest Bcash drama that is going on? We are live, by the way, just in case you didn't know.
I think it's good stuff, man. I think you know, I haven't focused on Bcash for a while just because I think it's dead, but it is nice to see it decay, right? Like I'm pleased to see that the scam has evolved to a point where it makes sense now just to eat their own, right? And all Ponzi schemes do this. They all build up and they have a plausible narrative, right? And they have a lot of funding. You know, they have somebody like Bitmain, you know, that's involved putting a lot of money into it. But as the Ponzi scheme falls apart, right? Like the smarter money has got out of it sooner, right? And so now it makes perfect sense to just do the Ricky Lake thing, right? Like, and I personally think this is planned, right? I don't think CSW and Roger Ver had a falling out. I think they're just putting on a good show. And this is a good way to pump it a little bit, right? Like people get excited about forks. We're talking about Bcash. When was the last time we talked about Bcash? Like nobody's cared about it. So it makes sense, but it's also a good sign that we're nearing the end of this thing, right? Maybe it's got another 6 months of legs on it between these two, but I wouldn't even give it that long anymore. So I'm happy overall. I think these guys are all retarded, but they know how to make money. And unfortunately, you know, they've taken advantage of a lot of people and actually, you know, a surprising number of good people. I would have talked more trash about the people invested in Bcash, but I've gone on some like generic libertarian podcasts to talk about mathbot.com. And some of these guys are really sharp, right? Like people that I would respect in other contexts, and they're like fans of Bcash. So it was actually, I have to give it way more credit than I would have a year ago. I think it did have an impact on Bitcoin adoption. I think it did slow it down significantly now in hindsight, but I also think it's over. So that's good.
Well,
yeah, I don't think it slowed down overall crypto adoption, though. You know, the market cap may be split, but it didn't slow down overall adoption.
Well,
it depends on, I mean, if you're saying crypto is 99.9% fraud. So yeah, I guess it didn't slow that down.
And we'll be talking about a digital currency soon. I won't name it right now. That appears to be quite fraudulicious, if that's a word. Pound that freaking like button for all this madness that's going on. But wait a second, JW. You bring up something. I don't know if you've read the latest fake Satoshi tweets. There's no way they're working together behind the scenes on this. He's gone into psychopath territory with some of this stuff. It would be nice if they conspired. At this point, he's only doing the overall price harm. I mean, the two afterwards might not add up to the one beforehand at this point. If I were him and they were all in a conspiracy together, he should shut his mouth and then that would help them. Okay, it's become pretty ridiculous, and this just shows, I think, the lesson we should all take away from this. When you have a figurehead, when it's centralized, this is how nasty it can get, and this is how bad it can get. And I don't, you know, people are talking about the financialization of the top tier altcoins also, that, you know, large institutions are going to be willing to pick up a portfolio of altcoins. How could they even consider anything but Bitcoin at this point after studying this drama that's going on? Ansel, what's your take on that?
Oh, they definitely will not be picking up any altcoins. There's been a Fundstrat, their research and have some funds themselves in the traditional space. They have done polls of the institutional investors, and it's like, I don't know, 90-10 split for people that are interested in Bitcoin versus altcoins. So, and there's no products out there yet. There's not any even on the horizon. Bitcoin has multiple futures markets, and, you know, people are in endowments and big investments are starting to come in. ETFs on the way. I don't see anybody really in their right mind putting Ethereum or putting any of these altcoins in their portfolio.
I think
nobody's talking about a Bitcoin Cash ETF.
Nobody. Well, in the past, I've heard about people talking about diversification for the sake of diversification. There are some people that are into that line of thinking, and they were mentioning Bcash. They were also mentioning Ethereum, and we're going to talk about that. We should talk about it right now. Why not? But at this point, when you have something like this is so unprofessional, how could this be included in a portfolio of gigantic traditional financial organizations? I mean, they would laugh at the. I mean, it's in one sense, the stuff that he's saying that he's going to destroy another coin. This does not help the adoption or the interest in cryptocurrency as a whole. It really, that people are going to pick up on this, write mainstream articles, and somehow twist it around that Bitcoin could be shut down, like how he's threatening to shut down Bitcoin. Well, I mean, what do you think about that, JW? Actually, that was you missed Ken and actually and Ansel talked about this. Do you think this could hurt Bitcoin in any short-term way?
No, I don't think so. I think the more that it's clear that Bitcoin is a legitimate open source project and that everybody else that's in this space that's pretending to compete with Bitcoin is just taking advantage of people that are technically illiterate or just low IQ in general, the more that that distinction becomes clear, the faster we'll see an adoption of sound money. Because the issue is, if you're a relatively intelligent person and you're an investor and you're looking at this space, if Bitcoin is there and it's legitimate, it's been there for 10 years, that's great, you'd probably invest. But what about these other newer things, right? Like, you immediately get hit with this narrative that Bitcoin is not a protocol, that it's like a startup company, and that there's other hotter, cooler startup companies with different features. And unless you are, pretty competent technically, it's hard to figure out what the heck is going on there. So I think that slows down adoption quite a bit. I think the quicker it's clear that that's not the case, right? That we have a legitimate project and a bunch of stupid scams that are taking advantage of the momentum created by this legitimate project, the faster that we'll see adoption of sound money.
All right, sound money. Remember that, people. Learn it. All right, and R Rafterman, thank you for the $2 super chat. Pound that freaking like button. Well, okay, let's talk about a coin that has no limit on it right now. We don't know how many they're going to be. It's been in the news a lot lately. And people say they are going to include it in these portfolios in the future, and that is Ethereum. When I had Simon Dixon on the show, everyone check out the archives, disruptmeister.com. It's linked to below. He was on Wednesday. It was great. He didn't say this straight up, but he started talking about EOS. And there are people out there that think EOS is the next Ethereum. I thought it was just, I thought that was just a tagline they were trying to use to convince people to buy them up. But people are thinking that EOS could be a major player in the Ethereum space, whatever the Ethereum freaking space is. I always thought Ethereum was the next Ethereum. I mean, Ansel, your take on this? We were talking about this before the show.
Well, yeah, I think when you compete on features, the competition is going to come in and going to compete on features with you. So Ethereum now has to compete against EOS. It's a bad deal for anyone that wants to compete in that space. Your margins are going to be competed down to zero, basically. Ethereum is having a lot of trouble right now. They are, Ether Delta, their DEXs have been shut down or getting regulatory pressure on them. The whole development is stalling. POS is not coming along very fast. Plasma is now delayed again. And I saw Vitalik talking about setting up some sort of standards organization for dApps. So they just keep centralizing, and it's not going to end well. Before the show, I said I think there's maybe a $20 billion market for these kind of scams, the certain smart contract platforms, and all the competition is going to have to split that market cap. So yeah, EOS might get up to a $10 billion market cap, but that means Ethereum has to go down to a $10 billion market cap.
Ken, your take.
Man, I actually, I was pretty big on Ethereum when I first got into crypto. It was a decent size of my portfolio, and actually started the past few months putting more and more into Bitcoin and less into Ethereum, and trading my alts back into Bitcoin, because that's where I do see a more stable position. but I do have high hopes for Ethereum. I would like for something like it to exist so I could utilize it. But really what it's serving right now is a purpose of a Peachtree dish. It is a nuclear testing facility for smart contracts for when Rootstock is enabled and we can do these things on Bitcoin's blockchain. A lot of people don't even know that we have color coins on Bitcoin's blockchain, and liquid assets is coming around, and you're going to be able to do a lot of this on Bitcoin's blockchain. But, I think we're getting rid of a lot of the bullshit. Like, you wouldn't want to see all these scammy ICOs being launched on Bitcoin's blockchain, right? I think that's what Ethereum's purpose is to Darwin out all the dumb shit all the dumb stuff. See, I caught myself, Adam. All the dumb stuff that's being built on Ethereum, because it really is dumb. I mean, name one project that has succeeded after an ICO. I'll wait. But I think when Bitcoin does come around, and it is when, Adam said it, Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. When Bitcoin evolves into the next Bitcoin, we'll have it ready. A lot of the developers that are, building smart contracts on Ethereum, I think they will move over to Bitcoin. Anything your altcoin can do, Bitcoin can do, and it will do it better.
Well, I think,
please.
Yeah, I think that you think you have demand for those things, but you objectively don't. There's no demand. The dApps, the two decentralized Ponzi exchanges on Ethereum had 1,000 people a day. There is no demand there. There's just like people saying, oh, we want Bitcoin to have more on-chain payments. There is no demand, or else Dogecoin and Litecoin and Bcash would all have more transactions. So yeah, I think that they tell a really good story, but that doesn't mean that there's real demand out there for that.
All right. I know JW will have a lot to say about ripping on Ethereum. Before you rip on Ethereum, though, do you have anything to say about the liquid stuff, JW? I think you might be a contrarian with that.
Actually, I don't know whether I'm a contrarian or not with liquid, but it does tie into what I was going to say about Ethereum, because big picture, what's going on here is that we're in the early stages of adopting a new money. And that means that we're in like the collector phase, right? There's not a whole lot of demand for transactions because a lot of people don't already have Bitcoin. And the technology is also evolving, right? Pre-Lightning, and we're still basically pre-Lightning. Somebody like Amazon couldn't adopt Bitcoin for payments, right? So I get that everybody's been here for 10 years and that we're kind of disappointed at the pace at sometimes, but just looking at the technical reality, a year ago, right this moment, actually, nobody could adopt Bitcoin for payments. But that doesn't mean that all of this other stuff isn't fraudulent, right? The other stuff, what it's doing is it's saying, okay, Bitcoin's not quite ready, so we're going to pretend to be ready. We're going to pretend that we have some technology that we don't have. Bitcoin Cash pretended that they were ready for payments, right? That they could scale up just by increasing the block size limit to dangerous levels. That was total bullshit, right? Like everybody knew that it was that had any technical competence. And, it's just this Ponzi that's created on top of it. Ethereum is the same thing, right? Ethereum is just, we're going to pretend that we're ready for smart contracts, which is even another layer, right? Like we've gone from, in the Ethereum world, they're completely missing the collector phase. They're missing the payments phase. And they're going all the way to the point of thinking that we're writing smart contracts on top of this money that hasn't even gotten close to getting to that point yet. So they created a huge Ponzi on top of that. Now, it's obvious that, if you're going to scale for payments, you have to be a good sound digital asset, right? You have to have security. Well, Bitcoin Cash abandons security in order to get payments. So that doesn't make sense. Ethereum never really even wanted to have security, right? They were such lazy scammers that they didn't even really attempt to create a secure system. And now they're talking about moving to something that we all know is crap, which is proof of stake. But, there's suckers that don't know that. And so, the Ponzi will continue a little bit longer. So that's overall big picture what's happening in the space. These projects, they don't really exist, right? They don't really have the technical foundation that they pretend they're having. And unfortunately, there's a lot of dumb money and a lot of traders, day traders or moment-to-moment traders that create some interest in this stuff. There's a lot of people that just want to gamble, right? And Ponzi's have always been popular, right? So you combine all of those things, yes, we're going to have to go through this unpleasant phase. But that's big picture what's going on. to speak to Ethereum as it sits right now, it's laughable, right? I mean, it was always laughable from a technical standpoint, but you can't even run a node, right? Like it's just totally insane. And its narrative is falling apart really, really quick. As Ansel said, the only use case that this thing ever had was tokens, right? Digital tokens. And I think they're cool. I like the idea of tokens. I think most of the time they're fraudulent scams built on fraudulent scams. But I do like the idea of being able to create some little token that represents something that you can pass around and, you know, basically make accounting easier, if nothing else. So there is an interesting use case there. And so Ethereum did sort of have that use case, right? People did build a lot of tokens on it. Again, setting aside the fact that those tokens themselves are just frauds. But that is a technical capability, right, that people were interested in using. There's a big problem with that, though, and that is that because Ethereum's fraud was all about smart contracts and not about, you know, being able to scale or whatever, they didn't even pay any attention to that. So CryptoKitties brings down Ethereum, right? Like they have no ability to even deliver on that part of the narrative because their technology is so inept. And they have no way to fix that, right? Because that's not what they do. They're not technologists, they're fraudsters, and they're good at what they do, but building useful software isn't one of those things. And it's even getting worse now because we have Liquid, right? So this is where Liquid comes in. Liquid's been launched. It's a legitimate project built by legitimate and competent developers, and it allows you to create tokens on this sidechain. And I think that it's going to work great, right? The little that I know about what those guys are doing, it all seems very, very legitimate and serious and like a real project. So if you're thinking about creating a token, maybe you have a legitimate use case, you're the 1 in 1,000, or maybe you're a fraudster. The right place to do that is going to be on Liquid. So Ethereum's even going to lose that narrative. And then combine that with the fact that we have simplicity. You know, there are people working hard on extending the capabilities of Bitcoin and adding additional scripts. Now, again, we don't need this for a while, probably, right? Because we're still in the collecting phase. But we're ahead of the game on Bitcoin. We have real competent people that are putting together the hard work to prove out a programming language that won't be riddled with security bugs, and we'll have that soon enough. So even that narrative is falling apart. So even from a fraud, like just a bullshit selling scam standpoint, I don't know how Ethereum's going to keep it going.
Ken, you at one point you perked up there when we were talking when they said Lightning Network. Did you have something to say?
Oh no, I could listen to him talk all day, man. I was just resonating with a lot of what he said, man. Yeah. No, what are your thoughts though on Liquid taking some of that scammy pressure off of Ethereum with the whole token creation and maybe giving it some room to actually breathe where people do start building smart contracts on it? Because Ethereum wasn't intended to be this ICO playground. It was supposed to be for smart contract development, and people just got sidetracked with building these ICO scams.
It wasn't. This is the thing that's so frustrating to me. Even with Bitcoin Cash right now, people are like, "Oh well, Roger was wrong. He's sorry now. He's seeing the error of his ways." You're falling for the overall narrative that they want to tell, right? Like the Federal Reserve, for example, right? Like if the Federal Reserve folks ever say, "Oh, we were wrong," they're going to say something like, "Look, we thought we needed to print all this money and steal all of your wealth and kill a lot of people in foreign countries because we thought we were doing it for your good, right? We thought we needed to control the economy and slow things down. And, we thought that we would actually deal with terror by killing millions of innocent people in foreign countries, right? We thought that by killing people's babies, we were actually going to reduce the risk of terrorism and we were going to avoid the next 9/11. And there's going to be some subset of people that are going to make me want to blow my brains out because they're going to say, "Oh, they saw the error of the ways." No, they didn't. It was a fraud and it was a scam from the freaking beginning. They didn't accidentally screw you over. Ethereum never, from the very moment that it was conceived, from the moment that Vitalik left the Blockstream offices and decided he wasn't going to work with those guys and he was going to build his own token, he knew that he wasn't going to build anything useful. And he knew that he was going to trick a bunch of people into buying some dumb shit and run a Ponzi until that ran out, right? that was the intention from the beginning. The very first architectural decisions made by Ethereum were architectural decisions that made it useless from day one in the long run, but created a good story. And if you go back and look at exactly what they were deciding, you can figure this stuff out, right? Like there's enough evidence of the decisions they made early on. And there's enough people from the Bitcoin side saying, hey, look, dude, if you want to do that, there is a way to do that, but what you're doing won't work for these reasons. They were not so stupid they didn't understand those reasons, even though they barreled forward with those designs.
You think they accidentally now have been put in a position with the amount of money they have from institutional investors, like with the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and stuff? Got to keep catching myself when I almost curse. But like, do you think like they're accidentally getting themselves in that position where they're like too big to fail, where they have so much money backing them, they may actually get the developers they need to develop it into a thing that actually works?
No, because they made architectural decisions that make them insecure by definition forever. And they're looking at making more architectural decisions that make them even more laughable, right? Like proof of stake is not going to work.
That's why I like Ethereum Classic.
Mining system is not going to work. Having a smart contracting language based on JavaScript is going to attract a lot of interest and attention, but it's not going to work for making things. So let me put it this way. If they went back to the drawing board with all the money that they have and they said, we're going to start from scratch, we're going to do the right thing, they would design Bitcoin and then they would just go home.
Cheers.
All right. Ansel, any thoughts on that, on this subject as we tie it up here? Okay.
I put a few notes down here. First off, it's not a technical issue. So Ethereum's flaws are not technical. Bitcoin, the consensus rules are set. It's not like we're going to come up with some new feature to make the consensus rules different. It's not a point of making a cool new feature that's going to bootstrap Ethereum or save Ethereum. So it's a monetary issue, right? It's a monetary confidence issue, and Ethereum doesn't even know. They don't even realize that.
But why do they lack monetary confidence? Because they made bad software design decisions that make it not a secure blockchain.
Right, and they don't understand that monetary confidence comes from not changing. Right, it comes from being stable and conservative, and they are doing the opposite. They're like wildly trying to search for the new thing or the new narrative or the new feature that's going to make them valuable, and that's the opposite of what they should be doing. They should be slowing down. That's one reason why I think Dogecoin is actually a pretty decent coin, because no one's developing it. It's been the same code base for like 2.5 years, I think. So,
right. But the problem is that both of those coins could be attacked and pushed over tomorrow if anybody has the interest. Right? The overarching foundation that needs to be established for all of these coins is they need to be government hard. If they're not government hard, they can just be a database. And that's the problem with all of these things, especially Ethereum and the ones that claim they're not even trying to be government hard anymore, is that they made decisions that make their foundation so weak and laughable that they have no applications.
Yes, agreed. Bitcoin is going to get most of the value further down in the future, but for right now, why these guys are flailing, they're trying to find this feature that's going to make them viable, and it's just not going to happen. And I also wanted to talk about mention you're saying, JW said that Lightning, is years down the road, or these smart contract scripting improvements to Bitcoin are years down the road. I agree with that, but I think that we need early closing of the loop on each one of these. So I think that we will need a successful Lightning use case, just like we had an early successful Bitcoin use case, which was the Silk Road. I think we're going to need an early Lightning use case just to close that loop and continue pushing down that path.
What do you think that use case would be, man? Because when you said that, my brain just started ticking. What do you think would cause that? Like, what would that look like for you?
I don't know. I love the idea of gaming. Putting Lightning into games, maybe a Lightning node on like a PlayStation or something, right? Like,
right. As esports is growing, we have a reason and a need for micropayments. Really, like I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, or I mean, Vices is always one of the better things too. So incorporate Lightning into all of the into all the cam girl stuff. into any sort of drug market or dark market, that should all have Lightning built in. Even gambling sites, with where you're paying by the spin of a roulette wheel on some sort of gambling site. I think that would be really
so
useful.
A gambling campsite Silk Road type of a situation. I feel like we could develop this.
It's there. They just need to implement it. Yeah.
These are the things. So much of the internet could not have been predicted in 1994. We cannot. These are great theories. These are great theories, especially with Ken Bozak on the show, which you're like talking about all his. You're in his wheelhouse there for a second. He just sent Ken Bozak. Just sent 420 in the super chat, by the way, coincidentally. I don't know if that's a coincidence. Thank you, Ken Bozak. He says pound that like button. And also, I got to give a shout out to Molotov Cocktail sent $5 in the super chat. He said Shabbat Shalom. You better believe it. In a few hours it starts. All right. So, okay. Yeah. So who knows what the use case of Lightning Network is going to be, what they're going to come up with. I mean, that's part of the excitement about this space. You don't know what it's going to be for, but you might be on the right track there when you're talking about the porn and the and with the esports. I hadn't actually thought about the esports thing yet. Well, let's JW. Do you have any thoughts on future Lightning use, or are you just going to let it develop on its own?
No. I mean, I'm excited about at least 2 use cases, but I think big picture, Silk Road only worked because there wasn't that much demand yet, right? So we really needed Lightning for Silk Road to function in the long term. So I think something like that is legit. But 2 use cases in general that I'm really excited about. One is e-commerce, and that's kind of Silk Road and everything else. And the reason for that is that if you pay for a credit card, the person that's selling you goods and services has a huge risk of chargeback, right? So if I sell you a pair of tennis shoes for $100, there is a reasonable chance that you're going to call up your credit card company. Either it's friendly fraud and you yourself actually did buy the shoes, but you don't want to pay for them. And so you tell the credit card company, hey, I didn't authorize this purchase. You get your shoes and they give you back your money, or it is actually a stolen credit card. But either way, the person that sold you those $100 shoes, and maybe they have a $10 margin on those, are screwed because they're the ones that lose that $100 and they lost the $100 shoes. So now they have to send 10 more shoes just to break even from that one instance of fraud. That can't happen with Bitcoin because the transactions are irreversible. So if I'm selling tennis shoes, I would probably provide a discount if somebody paid me with Lightning payment, right? So I think that is a really powerful. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars per quarter that could be saved. Again, the problem is we're still kind of in the collection phase, right? But I think that if the discount was 5%, that could be enough to incentivize people to go out, buy Bitcoin, and then pay with Lightning. So I'm excited about that use case. The other use case that I'm excited about is the elimination of spam. And both of these things are huge billion-dollar sort of problem, billion-dollar per month sort of problems. Twitter sucks right now. Like I post something on Twitter, I get like 78 porn bots liking it, and then maybe 50 normal people liking it. Right? It sucks. But if every time that like had a little bit of a Lightning payment involved with it, it would completely eliminate all the spam bots. And this goes all the way back to Hashcash, Adam Back's idea to solve email fraud. The problem with spam is that it's so inexpensive to send that it's easy to overwhelm people and just hit them with garbage. But if there's any cost at all, which Hashcash was just creating a cost of running your computer for a minute, if there's any cost at all in doing that, then you can eliminate this, right? So if every time you send me an email or send me a tweet, it's 10 Satoshis, it means nothing to you, right? Like it's going to cost you like 50 cents a month as the sender of this content to all the people that you want to send to. But that's more than enough to ruin the business model of all of the people that are just stuffing garbage in our inboxes, right? Whether that's Twitter or email or whatever other social media platform. And Jack Dorsey is invested in Elizabeth Stark's company, so maybe he's thinking along those lines. I don't know, but in general, the 2 things I'm excited about is e-commerce and spam prevention. But you're totally right. There's probably going to be 30 other interesting applications of this thing because it's really cool. It's instant. It's secure. It works well, and I have no doubt that there's going to be a lot of. I would still put those things under like the niche category, right? Because we haven't really passed the point of monetary adoption. But e-commerce and spam, that's a pretty freaking massive niche. And I'm excited to see what happens there.
When you were talking about spam, it made me think about what Steam it's doing and how people have to pay for a comment or to write a post, and how like it's technically not spam because you have to pay the network to interact with it. I feel like you're onto something there too with Twitter. Like they definitely need to do something if they want to survive. It's been too unevolved, and things like Minds and other decentralized social media outlets are coming around that, we're not going to get hit with spam as much. We're going to have true human interactions, proof of human. I think a lot of these projects are calling it. I would love to see something like that. But when it comes to Lightning channels, I thought it was funny. I went to the Litecoin Foundation Summit in
San Francisco.
Yeah, that one, San Francisco. Yeah.
September, yeah.
And Charlie Lee was there, and I was talking to him about how the Litecoin Foundation, and I can't remember who the name is, but somebody bought the Litecoin Foundation like 10% of a bank.
Yeah.
And I was asking Charlie, I was like, so when's this bank going to have a Litecoin Lightning channel? And he kind of like gave me a weird look like, can't talk about that, and kind of kept it moving. But I thought it was interesting, like to think like, the Litecoin Foundation is involved in ownership of a bank. It does make sense for a bank to go the route of a Lightning channel if they want to be part of this, and get those transaction fees. And I don't know, it just seems interesting to think that, Lightning channels would be a banker's dream in a sense. Like Wells Fargo would want to be the biggest Lightning channel. So everybody that wants to move 1,000 Bitcoin or more would go through their Lightning channel.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that it's free and open competition. So there's not a lot of money to be made by operating Lightning channels, which is great for the consumer, right? Like I'd hate to be a Bitcoin miner right now because it's so competitive. But as a consumer of that security service, I love it. And it's going to be the same thing with Lightning. Are we going to talk about stablecoins at all today? Because I'd love to talk.
Yeah, well, let me read a quote here. So if you want to, we'll talk about it right now. This Gemini just sent this email out. We designed the Gemini dollar as a stable coin that combines the creditworthiness and price stability of the US dollar with the technological advantages of cryptocurrency and oversight of the US regulators, namely the New York State Department of Financial Services. So they're not hiding it. They're saying, you use our stable coin, it's going to be totally regulated. And in this blog post, I'll link to it. I haven't linked to it yet, but I'll put it below the video now. They're basically ripping on Tether, trying to scare people away from Tether. They don't mention it by name, but by saying that there's some out there, we don't know if the bank really has the money, and they're not regulated like us. So JW, with all that out of the way, what do you have to say?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if anybody else has said this yet. I've been kind of thinking it through, but it seems like the stablecoin thing is the absolute best news that could possibly happen for Bitcoin in 2018. I think that unless something, like I'm kind of weary that, well, maybe they're not irreversible, right? Or maybe every time you send a stablecoin, like a Gemini stablecoin, it's going to go to an address and they all have to be KYC'd or something. But if it's what I think it is, if it's what it appears to be, it seems to be unreasonably good news. It is, in my opinion, if the US government, let me put it this way, and I know I'm making like blanket statements here, so there's probably a lot of nuance that makes the news not this good because it's just too retarded. It's too good of news, right? If the US government is saying, okay, we are going to allow stable coins, we're going to allow you to buy these digital assets that represent US dollars. And without KYC, you can bounce these things all around. And we're going to use the sort of existing structures in place for audits and for all of the things that allow you to be relatively confident that if you have this, this check or this card that says you have this much money in the bank, you actually have it, right? If it actually works that way, where you have the same confidence that you could get $1 if you own this Gemini stablecoin that's regulated by the New York, financial services dictatorship. If you have that level of confidence, that is absolutely insane because it's going to make it so much easier for Bitcoin to be adopted. The main tool that these guys had, the main asset that the evil had on their side to slow Bitcoin adoption was when we have this wave of adoption, right? All of this interest, it's insanely hard to get into, right? right? You have Coinbase where they just completely get overwhelmed. Like that 20,000 pump or whatever that happened, it probably would have gone to 50 or 60 or something absolutely, insane if there wasn't this massive barrier to being able to open an account with Coinbase and be able to send them the money. And it comes back to the chargeback issue. The chargeback issue is huge because you, Adam, you guys cannot send me money right now in any way that I can have confidence you won't take it back out of my bank account for up to 6 months. That is why I would never sell anybody Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is, stable and secure and safe, but any electronic payment method of dollars is completely dicey. That's why I didn't like Coinbase's business model from the very beginning, because they're charging 1% fee to be able to give you something that is irreversible, and they're taking something that's highly reversible, which makes them the global target for fraud, right? Like screwing people over and buying tennis shoes. I'm going to buy Bitcoin, right? And I'm going to do that with all of the fraudulent credit cards, right? And the only way that somebody like Coinbase can compete or can combat that is by these really obnoxious draconian policies, right? Like you're going to have a limit. It's going to take a long time for you to open the account. You're going to send us your ID. Oh, and periodically, we're just going to freeze your account. We're going to do all of the same thing that credit card companies do, right? You go on a trip, you go on vacation, whatever. It's ruined because for 2 days, you're living off the minibar because all your credit cards are frozen. The reason they have to do all of those retarded things is that they don't have any other tools to combat this. And that is the exact problem with US dollars, which makes adoption of Bitcoin really, really slow. But if these guys actually allow you to have digital tokens that represent US dollars and you can do an atomic swap or something for Bitcoin, that is insane, because I can now move into Bitcoin, which is a slowly or rapidly appreciating asset, depending on your perspective. I can move into that for my savings. And then when I need to use US dollars, I can pop back out, right? Like I can allocate my portfolio to the asset for savings purposes that seems to be the best, and I can still easily pay my rent and do all that sort of stuff. If that's actually happening, and again, it's too good of news for me to think that that's actually, I think there's got to be a hitch. There's got to be, oh yeah, every address has to be KYC'd, or it's going to be tried at a small scale and stopped. On the extreme, if they actually do this and all US dollars, let's imagine a world where all US dollars get converted to these stable coins. We're talking about a world in which everybody knows how many US dollars exist. That is a huge problem for the Federal Reserve to be able to pull off their Ponzi scheme. So I can't think that it's this good of news. I really think that it's impossible that we would actually get to the point where the Federal Reserve would allow people to know how many US dollars are in existence. So I don't think that we're going to go that far, but it is a massive step in that direction. And I'm totally surprised that it happened. I did not expect that somebody like, the New York Financial Services Bureau would ever approve something like this, because it is such a massive problem for the US dollar. So that's my thoughts.
There's KYC involved. That's why they approve. This is, I think,
there's KYC for the first person, right? But if I get KYC'd, let's say you want to sell me a pair of tennis shoes. If I go get these Gemini dollars, I got to get KYC'd. I get that. But then when I send the coins to you, do you have to be KYC'd?
I would imagine all wallets would have mandatory KYC in them. And I imagine that if regulations have their way with it, there'll be chargebacks just like there are in the traditional industries with Visa. They'll just do a transaction rollback on this stablecoin blockchain or whatever. If they're going to replace fiat with crypto the way that it may be going the way you're saying, I don't think it's going to change that much. I feel like they are going to still have, a way to print money behind our backs, and they're still going to have ways to do chargebacks and double spending. And they're going to have a lot of problems that are going to make Bitcoin look even better as these problems progress.
Well, ultimately it's a scam. Ultimately it's a fraud, right? You don't
totally a scam.
Fraud. You don't run a scam like the US dollar unless you're going to get paid, right? So they're going to print more dollars. They're going to steal everybody that's foolish enough to save them or forced into saving them. So I'm not worried that the US dollar is going to become more competitive with Bitcoin, because the US dollar by design is a fraud. But if it's easier to get in and out of US dollars, that's a huge advantage. What I don't know is, like you said, if everything's KYC'd. I reached out to Gemini. I haven't gotten a response, but maybe you guys know. Do all of the wallets? Does anybody know? Do all of the wallets have to be KYC'd?
Ansel, speak on all this stuff. You've got some opinions on this, I'm sure.
Well, I haven't seen this most recent news, but as far as I know, the backdoor is in the code. So they have like a function that's called like New York regulator or something like that. And so they can go into any any wallet they want in the system, in these stable coins, the regulated ones, and freeze any wallet they want, any account, take any sort of money that they can 100% control it. There is no.
Well, look, at the end of the day, it's
freedom.
their bank account, right? And so they could either, like, from my perspective, their ability to freeze an account is just it's better in the sense that if they're saying, hey, there's something that's happened with this and we're no longer going to redeem it for US dollars, you don't want that transaction to keep propagating off to more and more to other people that are eventually going to come back to them that are innocent in their twisted, status view, and ask for dollars. So I don't really care that those features are there. I mean, ultimately, it's a very trusting system, right? You're still trusting that when I give you this worthless digital token, you're going to give me back US dollars. Beyond that, the question is, how free am I to move these worthless tokens around, right? I'm sure that in order to redeem the worthless token, you have to be KYC'd because they have, there's no way that the regulators would approve that. And I'm sure that in order to get them, you have to be KYC'd. But the question is, in between those 2 points, is there a ton of freedom to move these tokens around? Or if they ever pop into an address that isn't KYC'd, do they become, non-redeemable?
Oh, wow. That would be, yeah, I can see that.
Well, I think that they want this to take over. And so maybe they will reduce the barriers, the KYC on every single wallet. They'll reduce that for the time being, but they can easily change that in the future. Yep. I think that the stable coins, that is what I think is like one of the biggest threats at this time. So JW thinks it's good news. I think it's actually really bad.
And if you
news.
add Chainalysis on top of all this, it just gets scarier.
Well, wait a minute. So you got to compare. The problem is you got to compare stable coins to the existing system, right? The question isn't, are stable coins good? It's, are they less evil than a US bank account? Because if they're less evil, then they're a step towards good, right?
Yeah, but the comparison isn't between dollars in your bank account and stable coin units in your wallet. The question is Goldman Sachs versus Bitfinex. That's the comparison you need to worry about. I think what's going to happen is they're trying to kill Tether because it is massively dominant in this fiat coin space, and they're trying to kill Tether and get this market share for USD coin, for Gemini dollar, whoever out there that's going to be a regulated stable coin, and then they're going to shut it down. They're going to say, okay, now we have these 5. That's all we need. Nobody else can compete. We're going to control the entire liquidity in this space because we have the stable coins, and that it's like a backdoor way of controlling what's going on. In long term, it's not going to affect Bitcoin. I totally agree with that. But short term, I think it can have a pretty bad effect.
Okay, can we touch on the fact that stable coins are not stable? Like the Circle Pay coin went up like 20%, and Steam backed dollar, that's a stable coin, went up like 13x. Like
these regulated ones will be more so stable. But
that's what I mean. That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what the regulations will help protect a little bit of.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason that they're not stable is that they're not actually the asset, right? So they're more useful than US dollars because you can move them around and they're irreversible. Like Tether is irreversible. If you sent me Tether, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be able to send that on, and nobody is not going to accept it. That is more useful than a US dollar because I can't do that. If you sent me money right now, I would not be comfortable sending it on to Ansel because you can reverse
$20 bill though. It's the same. That's kind of like
Yeah. We're talking digital ways of transferring money. So if Adam sent me $100,000 USD, you can bet your ass I would not be sending it on to Adam because I'd be worried that Ansel is going to call up his bank and reverse it and I'm out 100 grand. If somebody sends me 100 grand in Tether, then I can send it on to anybody and I don't have any worry that I'm going to be stuck in the middle. So Tether's actually, in some sense, it's different, but it's more valuable than US dollars for certain use cases. Of course, it also has risk associated with it that Tether is not solvent or whatever. And that's why it's going to float around. You can't, the idea that two assets are actually pegged to each other has been proven through economics to be impossible time and time again. Even just simple stuff like trying to peg a certain amount of gold to the US dollar, that was, it's just not possible. We don't have that level of control over the universe. But back to Ansel's point, I think that's an interesting possibility that this is an attack, but let's think it through in stages here. So the first stage is we're actually building something that's better than Tether. Because if it's not better than Tether, then this attack is going to fail because people aren't going to adopt it, right? And then the question is, does this thing that's actually better than Tether, and I'm assuming that it's better than Tether because people are adopting it. I don't know if people are adopting it or not, but let's just, there's a thought experiment, right? So if it's better than Tether and people adopt it so that they can screw over everybody by eliminating stable coins, at least it was better than Tether for some period of time. So you get some good out of this attack, right? In the same way that, altcoins trying to rip people off, they have a marketing budget, maybe that attracts people to the space. There's some positive aspects even of attacks. So this is a positive aspect. Then the question is, if they did that, why would they go about doing it that way, right? If Goldman Sachs wants to deal with Tether, it is really easy to deal with Tether. I mean, it is a few phone calls and maybe some FBI agents showing up at banks. The mystery to me, honestly, and I said a year ago, I didn't think Tether was necessarily going to be here in a year. The mystery to me is that they've allowed Tether to exist. I don't get that. That makes no sense. They didn't allow eGold to exist. They didn't allow all of these other attempts to create digital banks to exist. They don't allow anybody else to create a bank that's even 100% reserve. Right? If you want to right now create a bank that's 100% reserve, you'll call up your regulator and they'll tell you, no, we would never let you do that because everybody would flock to your bank because they like the idea that you're actually safe and secure. And we don't want to have a system like that. We want to be able to print money and screw everybody over. So no, you are not allowed to create a safe and secure 100% reserve bank. That's illegal. That's bank, you're going to prison for a long time if you try to do that. So why are they letting Tether exist in the first place? That's the thing that's mysterious to me. So
Tether's lining the right pockets. That's what they're doing.
Well, if that's the case, then what that means is that the actual market demand for a digital asset that's useful is so big that there's enough people that are willing to participate in that fraud. That's great. I would rather get defrauded less, right? Even if it means that they're making more money. And if that's what's going on, then ultimately it's not an attack on Tether, right? It's just saying, hey, this is a great fraud and we're making a lot of money with it. So I really don't know what's going on, but I don't really buy the idea that they're going to all this trouble just to destroy Tether because there's so much easier ways to do it.
I love your perspective.
Well, right, but there were much easier ways for the Fed or the government to kill Bitcoin in the early days, and they didn't fight it head on because, that would give away their position. That would make them look bad and actually go about driving people into Bitcoin more. Same way with Tether. If they came out and destroyed Tether in a frontal assault, then they would destroy the confidence in these stable coins overall. What they want to do is just throw out FUD every couple weeks or every week, throw out some FUD, scare people out of Tether into their stable coins, and then they can do the fractional reserve. They can do whatever the heck they want over there on these stable coins. If they control, 99% of the stable coin market, they will be able to do the liquidity however they want on these exchanges. They'll be able to hold these exchanges hostage. They'll do all this stuff. What I think would be a great solution here would be Tether on Liquid, because Tether is this asset that these banks want to use for arbitrage and stuff. Tether on Liquid is what will fight these Goldman Sachs types that are going to come in with their USD coin and try to control this space.
You think we'll see a decentralized?
Cool.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, man. Sorry.
I was just wondering if you guys think we'll see like a truly decentralized stable coin.
Bitcoin.
No, that's what I mean though.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, the problem is that, like, the key security issue here is that if you try to create a digital token that's tied to anything in the physical world, you have a massive security problem. That's redemption. And that's why we won't see a gold-backed digital asset, right? We won't see like tokens that are competing with Bitcoin that represent an ounce of gold. We won't see tokens that are competing with Bitcoin that represent $1, because the part of the genius of Bitcoin is that the asset itself is digital. So if you have it, you freaking have it. And that makes it so much harder to steal that nothing is going to be able to compete with that that's trying to rely on a third party that's going to give you your stuff if they like the cut of your jib. That it doesn't make sense. So no, we're not going to see anything like that. Liquid is really cool. I don't want to undercut the importance of Liquid in the sense that it is by far the best way to create digital tokens right now that are secure. I mean, I like the idea of Giacomo Zucco's RGB. I like the idea of, I don't know, what's that stupid counterparty or whatever thing that's just really poorly implemented, of using the metadata in Bitcoin transactions to represent these tokens, because ultimately Bitcoin is far more secure. The problem there is that it's expensive to move the tokens around on Bitcoin because of the mining fees. It's not right now, but with adoption, it would be. So ultimately, I like the idea of these tokens existing on Bitcoin on a Lightning-like layer, which is what RGB is all about. So that's my favorite long-term solution. But between now and then, I think what Liquid is doing is great. Plus, I mean, the only really downside of Liquid is that it's not as secure as Bitcoin, right? You're still looking at a custody. It might be 15 exchanges where 12 of them have to be corrupt in order for your money to be overwritten. But still, I mean, it's like it's better in some ways. There's hardware security features involved, but still we should think about Liquid as a custodial service. Maybe a well-designed, well-implemented, multiple parties involved, but still at the end of the day, it's a custodial service. So I like Liquid. I think it's certainly better than Ethereum, because it wasn't designed to be a fraud from the beginning, right? So it's not necessarily a super high bar, but it's cool. It's a legitimate technology. I don't think that would actually have a big impact on Tether, because the major problem with Tether is, are they going to give me my US dollars? Like, are these people actually keeping money in the bank account? And is that bank account being frozen, right? Because the regulators have decided, okay, I mean, if this is what's playing out, it wouldn't surprise me if we see Gemini build up some momentum. And then what typically happens is somebody like Gemini, who's been greasing the regulators, it depends. If Tether's greasing them more, they're fine. But if not, if Goldman Sachs really wants to destroy Tether, all they're going to do is they're going to make a phone call, and those bank accounts are going to be frozen, and those bank accounts will become U.S. government assets in 13 seconds, no matter what country they're setting in. We've seen this happen time and time again. It's not a challenge. It's not a difficulty. I'm flabbergasted that it hasn't happened yet, frankly. And that's the risk, right? And Liquid doesn't do anything to address that.
Hey, I've got this conclusionary remark, was we got to move on to the next subject here. I'll say this as a positive for the stable coins. It's taken away the government. The regulators are obviously into it. They like it. Gemini's bragging that it's regulated. So the regulators can only deal with so much. So they're dealing with stable coins now. Bitcoin is alone on its own to do whatever it wants. It's a distraction. They'll come for Bitcoin in some way. They're not going to be able to do anything to it, but it takes away the people who FUD Bitcoin on, Bitcoin's going to get regulated, which it's not. Now it's all this regulation and government interest is in the stable coin side of things. So that's great. Let them play over there for a while, because they can't play where the big boys play in Bitcoin. Pound that freaking like button. So let's talk about the big boys. A year ago, there were some people with some weak hands talking about this 2x thing, and it totally blew up. And once again, Bitcoin was victorious. Ken, do you have any memories of the 2x? Any lessons you learned? Anything you want to share on this? Now it's been a year anniversary. I think it was yesterday.
Man, I remember staying up. I think I did a 15-hour live stream during the fork just to dump my Bitcoin Cash for Bitcoin.
Well,
that was a crazy time right there in that point. But I don't know, man. I feel like I learned a lot. I learned that how much I didn't know basically about Bitcoin and blockchain around the whole 2x thing. Like that whole scenario taught me a lot. Every time I walked into a Bitcoin meetup I was going to, everybody would ask, are you a 2x or not? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I have to learn, just I was happy that event happened when it did. That way, the early adopters that may have just been into it because it's cool tech, maybe didn't understand the tech, had a reason to go and learn more about it, like me. So my big takeaway from that was, the learning process I was forced into. The same thing when Ethereum and Ethereum Classic forked. I was happy for that educational process. I learned a lot during it, and I feel like the community did as well.
Well, Ansel, how about your memories of the whole 2x fiasco and those who supported it?
Yeah, I wrote an article on my website about 2x Remembered, because I think it's very important to hold these people accountable, that signed the New York agreement and all of that. It was a huge learning opportunity, and they still, to this day, a lot of these conspirators, I called them in the article, they to this day, they'll claim success of SegWit. They'll say, hey, it was 2 parts, SegWit, and then a doubling of the base block size. And they'll claim success of SegWit, but not the failure of the whole thing. And no, the user activated soft fork, I think August 1st is going to go down in history as the Independence Day of Bitcoin. 2x is going to be forgotten, I hope. And these people won't be able to steal this thunder of the user activated soft fork for much longer, hopefully.
Well, I mean, 2x, and it never forked off. It never happened. It will be forgotten because the movement that might be remembered. I mean, the New York agreement, Barry Silbert and all that stuff. But when they never forked it off, we never got our free 2x crypto dividend. Oh, well. And Bitcoin remained Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the next Bitcoin. Back then, there was a lot of FUD again that, is it going to go this corporate way? Is this the way for Bitcoin? Is it going to split? It already split into this Bcash. Will it split again? JW, do you have memories or thoughts on that whole time period?
So I was just getting into Bitcoin around that time period. So I remember it, but I don't know. It's kind of like getting dropped in the middle of like something that's happening. So I remember analyzing and go, oh yeah, it's insecure blocks, it's an attack, whatever. But yeah, my memories are really hazy because I was deep down the rabbit hole on multiple parts of Bitcoin at that point in time. But looking back on it, like trying to figure out what happened, which I've been doing over this last year, off and on. It's kind of depressing to me in the sense that I wish that there was more history going on, right? I wish that, I really appreciate that Ansel wrote that. It totally bums me out that in 3 or 5 years, probably the narrative is going to be completely lost, or very, very much hindered, right? Like there's so few people in the space right now. There's so few people that lived it. There's so few people that remember it. And it was so messy that, for example, Bcash is SegWit 2x, right? Like the whole point of this thing was that they were trying to retain ASIC boost. It was a Bitmain backed attack on Bitcoin. They gave up on that, and then they pivoted to Bitcoin Cash, which was Bitmain backed. It retained ASIC boost. It was like the same people, right? But even that is already lost, right? It's a year later. And people don't immediately associate Bitcoin Cash with SegWit 2x. So I don't know. It's kind of depressing. I thought that I should put a ton of work. At one point, I was creating this Bitcoin villains wiki. I was going to kind of try to keep track of this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to focus more on mathbot.com and building stuff. But it is a little bit sad to me that these greasy sons of guns are, their actions, in the big scheme of things, maybe they don't matter that much anyway. But it's a little sad to me that that it's not going to be like clearly memorialized exactly what happened and exactly who deserves to have a shitty reputation after this.
Everyone gets forgiven in this space. That's the thing. So many people in this space. I mean, they don't seek knowledge at all, and they're willing to forgive. I mean, just people are saying, "Oh, I feel so bad for King of the Trolls now. He's a good guy." All of a sudden, all of a sudden he's a good guy again. I mean, people have some. There are a lot of short-term thinkers. I mean, there should be a lot of long-term thinkers, and there are a good amount of 20%ers in this space. But I mean, there's definitely a memory problem here, because I mean, there's a lot of newbies. There's always newbies coming along, and yeah. But it on a certain level, it is disappointing that people just don't have, they don't know their history. But hey, that's the way you got to deal with it. You got to plot your course based on all that people are going to forget. They do have short memories in this space, unfortunately. Because sometimes you shouldn't forget. You need to learn from your lessons. There'll be a similar threat again one day. I don't know how it will manifest itself, but it was an interesting time period last summer and last fall to see these threats come and go, and then after 2x blew its lid. I mean, the price of Bcash and Bitcoin started, in terms of fiat, went up quite a bit, because there was a lot of uncertainty was gone from the playing field. Okay, now but before we move on, Ansel, you had anything? And first of all, everybody's linked to below. I got to add JW's link. You got to check out all their stuff. But Ansel, yes.
Yeah, I just want to say I think it's hilarious how every time that blockchain.info tweets, people mob in the replies, "Hey, when SegWit?" Because I think it's good. People that are watching this right now, the least you can do is troll these people. Every time they tweet, you make sure to reply to them, "Hey, is this now, have you changed your mind from SegWit 2x or something like that?" Like, don't let these people get off the hook. Don't let people forget about it. I don't know. Just try to find a little bit that you can do to help this space out. That would be one thing you could do, I think.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about helping the space out. We were talking about frauds beforehand and pointing out what's real and what's not real. I've been getting a lot of spam in my comments section for this initiative Q thing, and it looks like BitConnect type affiliate links. Ansel, you said you were at a meetup and someone even mentioned it.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, put it on the meetup site, even trying to shield their affiliate link. Yep.
Unbelievable. Ken, have you been? People brought this initiative Q thing up to you also. They're straight up not a cryptocurrency. They're a digital currency. I linked to an article about them below. But I mean, it's all over the place. Do you have
the first time I heard about it was when you hit me up. Whenever I see scammy comments in my YouTube, I just report spam. I don't even read it. I don't have the time to. I guess I should do a little segment on all that, like, weekly scam comments or something to but who wants to give them that spotlight, even just even out a scam as calling them a scam is giving them too much, limelight. But I do see a lot of things popping up anymore. And what's really crazy is since the exit of BitConnect, USI Tech and BitPetite and GladiaCoin and all these other scams, the thing that I was calling a scam, it's still around, which boggles my mind. And I hate to give it the limelight. Do not put your money in it. I'm just amazed that it's around. And if anybody has any idea how it's still around, I would love to know. But how is BitClub still a thing? I got into crypto 3.5 years ago and heard about this BitClub, looked at it, was like, well, that's a scam, and never looked at it again. And recently people have been hitting me up and it's still an active thing. It's crazy that there's still scams out there that are still legacy scams, and there's still going to be scams that pop up every day. But I think, like JW said, there's still new people coming in that don't know nothing that happened. They don't know their history. They don't know about BitConnect. They just know about the BitConnect Lambo, moments. I kind of I don't know. I almost like scams in a sense of the Darwinism. Like, we need people to go through these difficult times early at the 1 to 2% adoption curve rather than at the 10-20% adoption curve. And BitConnect comes out and starts telling people 20 to 40% a month guaranteed stuff. Like, if we go through this learning curve now with all these, shoddy scams, like, the whole send money here, Nigerian prince email thing, like, we'll get through it and it will be in our DNA to know a scam when we see it. People get emails now and they're like, oh, that's a scam. But then they see send ETH here and they're like, oh, I might get rich. So we're going to have to go through that. So I think the scams are serving a purpose for the evolution, but I would love to see the people behind them actually get prosecuted. I would love to see the SEC not go after Elon Musk, but go after BitConnect and actually show us them doing something about this. But, they'd rather not. So unfortunately, we have to self-regulate. We have to govern ourselves. And I think we're doing a good job at it so far. I really don't feel like we need regulation at the rate we're self-regulating.
Well,
and it's all thanks to scams.
I like your Darwin take on it. That's a nice way of putting it. JW, what's your take on that? Have you heard of this Initiative Q thing? Anything?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I mean, vaguely, right? Like, I have no idea what the angle is. I've just heard the title of it, and it didn't really suck me in to even look into it. But I think overall, one of the things that is constantly hitting me over the last month, 6 weeks, is that as an old guy, right? Like, I'm in my mid 40s. I've been in technology for a long time. We really expected by this point in time to have a reputation system in place, like a global internet-wide reputation, not necessarily tied to identity, right? But like JW Weatherman, not my real name, but it has a reputation, right? It would be great, and this would solve all of the scam problems. This is the free market solution to scams, is reputation, right? So it would be great if we all had identities. If you could fire up a new identity, it didn't necessarily have a reputation, but it could earn reputation and it could lose reputation. Somebody like Roger Ver would have negative 10 billion reputation points, right? And then when people go to do business with a product or a company or something that he's endorsing, it would actually damage things, right? Because the internet can have a much longer memory than the 6 weeks that that the public schools seem to have created in the average American's brain at this point. So it's kind of frustrating. The good news, though, is that we also kind of always thought that sound money or internet money or money that wasn't controlled by the government was going to be a foundation on which a lot of this stuff was going to be able to be built. So it's really depressing that we don't have a reputation system to me, but it's also really encouraging that things seem to be playing out the way a lot of people expected. They've just been longer. And I think it's because the sound money problem was a lot harder than anybody thought it was 20, 25 years ago. But once we have established Bitcoin, once we get through this, right, like this is, I think, the tipping point of history. We will see a lot of stuff like reputation systems being built and just an explosion of innovation that makes, the Industrial Revolution look tame by comparison. So there's my positive and my negative on this stuff. We should freaking have a reputation system, man. It's ridiculous we don't, but we have Bitcoin and we'll probably get there soon.
Make the Industrial Revolution seem tame. Pound that like button for that line. I like that. All right, so we're going to get to everybody's conclusionary thoughts. We're getting toward the end of the show here. I want to start with Ansel. Did we leave anything out? Did you a story you wanted to share? Anything?
Well, yeah, I just want to touch on that Initiative Q thing. Their angle is payments, and I think it's very cool that now this whole payments narrative is actually becoming this pyramid scheme. So hopefully we won't have to deal with like Bcash type scams that are talking about payments all the time. But I have noticed things like blockchain.info. Again, I'll name drop them. They're giving away Stellar. They're bringing back this whole giveaway scam thing. I mean, how long did we have to deal with those bots in our replies on Twitter? Now it's actually being run by blockchain.info. A freaking crypto scam bot program is being run by blockchain.info. But go ahead.
It will work out for them too. They're going to get customers that way. And it's going to help. It's going to help Stellar too. By the way, I had a blockchain.info account since 2014, and so I was like, oh, well, I'll get my free Stellar, I guess. Oh no! In order for me to get my free Stellar, I have to give them my information because it's anonymous right now. In order to get your free Stellar, you gotta give your information. I don't know your real name, probably, who knows, your driver's license, I don't know. So, oh well, it's going to benefit them. It's not worth it, people.
I had an exchange email me, and I actually replied, made sure they were a real exchange, and they told me I won Bitcoin, which turns out I really did. But in order to claim it, I got to submit KYC. I was like, you can keep the money.
Exactly. All right, Ansel, sorry to interrupt you. You're about to say.
Oh yeah, last thing, just touching on JW's reputation thing. Reputation is valuable, and I think that we have been missing this value on the internet, a stable value like this. So Bitcoin is going to, enable a reputation system. And that's one thing one reason why I believe all these altcoins are going to fail, because there's going to be one source of value on the internet, and that's going to be Bitcoin. So yeah, and I also agree with it's going to be 1,000x when we our standard of living is going to go up by 1,000 times, I think, in the next couple hundred years because of Bitcoin.
Wow, that's a great conclusionary thought. Hey, say your website too, so everybody can check out your podcast every day.
Yeah, every week, bitcoinandmarkets.com. You can sign up for the free report as well. If I miss a week, or if you want to see the charts that I'm talking about or the things I'm talking about, it'll come right to your inbox. You can sign up on the website, bitcoinandmarkets.com.
And his Twitter is linked to below. You can get to there from there also. All right, Ken, you've been going to a lot of events. Obviously, I want to hear your conclusionary thoughts and anything that got left out. But you go to all sorts of events. They don't just have to be Bitcoin. You've been the ICO type events also. So how's the scene been lately? Have you been barfing, or how's it? You were just in Vegas. You had a birthday. Was that obscene, or how'd that go?
Vegas World CryptoCon was a crazy party. It was pretty cool. A little unorganized. There was a lot going on. It was a big venue, not enough people, stuff like that. But I mean, overall, a great takeaway. What I got out of World CryptoCon was that we still have a lot of enthusiasm in this space, man. And nothing has died out from the beginning of the year, from December at the all-time high till right now. I've been seeing people at these conferences just as enthusiastic. I have not seen any enthusiasm die down. The thing that kind of concerns me, though, about these events is everybody kind of like the suits, are really looking for the next Bitcoin. Like, that's really what they're hunting when they go to these conferences. They're really hunting for the next Bitcoin. And every time somebody asks me, I'm like, it's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. It's, just wait for the update, baby. I don't know. I feel like, really, the takeaway from me going to 39 conferences in 11 months is that I think conferences are in a bubble. We need to stop going to conferences. Go to more meetups. If you want to hang out with people that are like-minded, don't pay to go to a conference. Stop that shit right now. Buy crypto and organize a meetup. Go to meetups.com, start a local meetup in your neighborhood, and you'll have free conferences every week or every month. And you'll get the same takeaway. When you go to a conference, for me personally, I spend 98% of it in the hallways talking to people and networking, rubbing elbows. And that's even before I have to use my pass. And then maybe 2% of it, I go inside and actually run by the booths. And yeah, I bring a barf bag because it gets really disgusting in there. But there's been some really cool projects. And JW, you brought up reputation on the blockchain. I don't know these guys that well. I just met them at World CryptoCon, but these dudes are kind of doing what you said. It's called Vouch for Me, and it's decentralizing trust between friends. It's like a digital reputation thing on the blockchain. I saw them at World CryptoCon the other day, and you mentioned it. I just thought it would be interesting to bring up. But the projects that I've been running into that I find more interesting than the others aren't like the next healthcare on the blockchain solution. It's more like these games, these dApps that I think are really going to be more of a mainstream, scenario than healthcare on the blockchain. CryptoKitties may have damaged Ethereum's blockchain, but it did help the crypto community as a whole as far as getting attention and adoption and people's interest into the technology of what a non-fungible is and all this other stuff. So a lot of these games, these dApps I've been running into are really cool. There's one on the POA network called Dope Raiders. You can grow digital weed, sell it for crypto, and buy real weed with your digital money. It's just really cool stuff. So, I mean, these conferences are really neat, but my overall takeaway is don't go to any conferences, guys. Stop. Organize your own meetup. Start your own thing and contribute to the community in a different way than giving your money to a conference who's just going to dump the Bitcoin and get fiat at the end of the day, because that's what these conferences do. They dump our crypto and they hold fiat.
Offended by selling. Don't sell that Don't sell that Bitcoin to these conferences who are going to dump it. All right, but no, that's a great point. You know, the meetups that's the genuine thing, man. That's the real thing. It's you know, you get to meet the real people, and yeah, it is kind of sickening that. I mean, hey, it's personal responsibility is new counterculture. If these big suits want to go troll these events, looking for the next Bitcoin, well, they'll be looking for a very, very long time. They're wasting their time.
I was at Money 2020, dude, and it was insane. That was the Federal Reserve actually has a booth marketing the Federal Reserve at Money 2020, which like to me was like, oh, well, now they feel like they got to compete. Like now they're scared. The Federal Reserve doesn't have to advertise, but now they do because Bitcoin is their competition. They are terrified, bro. I walked by the Federal Reserve booth and they were right across from the all four of the crypto booths that were there. Just like the smallest little Federal Reserve booth surrounded by giant crypto booths at Money 2020.
Well, at least they didn't blow a lot of money. I mean, that's ridiculous. They had a booth. All right, JW, thank you for coming on at the last minute, my friend. Talk about what was left out, anything you wanted to add, and of course, talk about the school Meister discount code. Take his classes. They're great classes. I've mentioned it a few times.
Shout out to MathBot.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? This is my advice. If your net worth is less than $100,000 right now, you should become a software developer. And the best way to start that is go out to mathbot.com. It's designed to teach math and programming. It's great for kids, but it's also good for adults. So if you're worth less than $100,000 right now, go do that. Don't worry about investing in scams. You're broke. You don't make any money. Get some skills to where you make money. If you're worth less than $100,000 right now, become a software developer and start by playing all the levels at mathbot.com. Don't be intimidated. Don't think that you're not smart enough. Chances are you're more than smart enough to be able to do this and earn some real money. And I completely agree with Adam, with Ansel, that we are going to see just a massive wealth explosion. Like the net worth of the average person is going to go up a lot, just like happened in the Industrial Revolution, but it's I think even going to be bigger. And a big part of that is because we're getting really good at mastering software and being able to control the natural world around us. So be part of that. Go out and sign up at mathbot.com. If you're making decent money and you are somebody that needs to save and invest and build wealth, you've already got, a decent career figured out, then take my class. Go to jwweatherman.com/class. And yeah, Adam's got a discount code. So if you mention Adam Meister, you get $50 off the class. So take advantage of that. And the class covers Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, enough software security, and enough economics to where after the several hours of lecture, the hour of one-on-one coaching with me and the bi-weekly live stream that we do with all the students, you'll be in a really good situation to avoid all the scams and frauds that we've talked about and do really well. So it's jwweatherman.com/class, CLASS.
Invest in your knowledge, folks.
Yeah, and hey, I watched the whole classes. It's good stuff. All you people that want to be red pilled and they're into that type, there's some history in it too. all sorts of stuff for guys who like that. But in the end of the day, you end up a stronger hand. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you, for those people who kind of waver between Bitcoin and should I get some Litecoin too and some Dash too? Yeah, you'll like the class. You won't be wavering very much. All right, everyone. Well, that was an awesome time today. Remember, we do this show every Friday, and coincidentally, next Friday, when Tawanda Kembo from Zimbabwe will be on the show, it will actually be at the same time next Friday, which is 11 a.m. Eastern time next Friday, which is 4 p.m. in London, I believe. So tune in next Friday for the This Week in Bitcoin show. We already know one of our guests is Tawanda Kembo in Zimbabwe. And remember, I post a new show here every single day. It's not just about This Week in Bitcoin. And of course, the Saturday night show is the Beyond Bitcoin show. So that's what tomorrow's show is. But again, check out disruptmeister.com, see all my old shows. Check out techbalt.com, TECHBALT. To see all the old This Week in Bitcoin shows. This was our 94th This Week in Bitcoin show. Oh yeah, baby. Every week. I'm very reliable. I'm very reliable. I'm like Cal Ripken. If you guys know him, he was a baseball player from Baltimore, just like me. Anyway, so pound that like button, everybody. Shabbat shalom. I will see you later. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you, guest.
Have a day.